The role of family in Islam, a solution for modern society. What if I told you the secret wasn't money, wasn't technology, wasn't politics, but family? Look around today. Families are breaking. Parents are disconnected. Children are raised by screens instead of love. Elderly parents are placed in nursing homes, forgotten, while young adults feel empty despite being surrounded by people online. We have more connection than ever before, but less closeness than at any point in history. And yet Islam gave us a model, a blueprint, that, if revived, could heal these fractures. Let's open the first door. In Islam, the family is not just a social arrangement, it's sacred. Marriage is described as a sign of God's mercy. And among His signs is this, that He created for you spouses from among yourselves, that you may find tranquility in them, and He placed between you love and mercy. Notice those words, tranquility, love, mercy. Doesn't that sound like what everyone is searching for in relationships? Islam doesn't reduce marriage to romance or convenience. It elevates it to a spiritual partnership. Now the second door, parents. In the Quran, after commanding us to worship Him alone, God immediately commands us to honor our parents. That's how high the rank of family is. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said, "Paradise lies at the feet of your mother." Just imagine that. The very key to eternal success is not found in wealth or status, but in serving the woman who carried you, who sacrificed for you. And yet how often in modern culture do we see parents sidelined, their wisdom ignored, their sacrifices forgotten? Islam flips that on its head. It makes honoring them a path to heaven. The third door, children. In pre-Islamic Arabia, daughters were buried alive out of shame. Islam came and abolished that cruelty forever. The Prophet himself would stand up when his daughter Fatima entered the room. He kissed his children and grandchildren openly in a culture where affection was seen as weakness. He said, "The best of you are those who are best to their families." Notice that your character isn't measured by how you treat strangers or colleagues, but how you treat your spouse, your parents, your children. The fourth door, responsibility. Islam doesn't leave family bonds vague. It defines rights and duties. Husbands are commanded to treat their wives with kindness. Wives are honored and respected as equal in spirituality and accountability. Children have a right to be raised with love, education, and faith. Parents have a right to care, respect, and companionship. And when these rights are fulfilled, society becomes strong. Isn't it true that when families break, communities collapse? But when families thrive, nations flourish. The fifth door, community support. Islam doesn't just stop at the nuclear family. It extends to the extended family, neighbors, and society at large. The Prophet said, "He is not a believer whose stomach is filled while his neighbor goes hungry." That means family values ripple outward, creating communities where people feel cared for, not abandoned. Compare that to modern societies where loneliness is labeled an epidemic. Isn't the solution already here? And the sixth door, balance. Islam teaches balance between family and the wider world. It doesn't say isolate yourself. It says begin with your family, then extend goodness outward. It doesn't say neglect your loved ones for your career or ambitions. It says true success is when your closest circle feels your kindness. In a time when careers often matter more than children, and strangers online matter more than parents at home, Islam reminds us where our real legacy lies. So when we ask, what can heal modern society? The answer is not hidden. It's in the very institution Islam protected so fiercely, the family. Strong families create strong individuals. Strong individuals create strong communities. And strong communities change the world. Now here's the secret. Every one of us has the power to start. You don't need to fix the world overnight. You can begin by calling your parents, by hugging your children, by showing patience to your spouse, by making family time sacred again. Those small acts ripple out into society more than we realize. So I leave you with this. If we want to heal the fractures of modern life, we must return to what Islam already gave us. the honor of family. Because family isn't just where life begins, it's where society is saved. And you, sitting here, are not just listeners, you are potential healers, carriers of mercy, builders of the future. Islam elevates marriage into a sacred bond based on tranquility, love, and mercy. Honoring parents is central to faith, with paradise linked to serving one's mother. Children are a blessing, treated with love and dignity, not as burdens or shame. Families thrive through clear rights and responsibilities that Islam defines. Islamic family values ripple outward, creating supportive communities. Strengthening families is the key to healing modern society's loneliness and disconnection. When people talk about marriage today, it's often painted as a contract, a piece of paper, or sometimes even a burden. But in Islam, marriage is described as a sign of God Himself, a divine sign placed on earth so that men and women could understand what mercy, love, and tranquility truly mean. The Quran says, "And among His signs is this, that He created for you spouses from among yourselves, that you may find tranquility in them, and He placed between you love and mercy." Think about that for a moment. In a world filled with miracles, the stars in the night sky, the oceans that stretch endlessly, the mountains that touch the clouds, God calls the bond between two people a sign of His greatness. That's how sacred marriage is in Islam. Now picture the world today. Relationships are fragile. Love is portrayed as fleeting, something that burns bright but dies quickly. People swipe left and right on screens, searching endlessly but finding little. Divorce rates rise. Commitment feels heavy. Yet Islam came with a message that grounds marriage not in convenience or lust, but in something eternal. It tells us that marriage isn't just about companionship, it's about tranquility. And what is tranquility? It's that feeling of safety, of knowing that no matter how stormy the world outside is, there is someone waiting who is your shelter. That is what Islam defined marriage as centuries ago, long before the modern world began questioning the value of commitment. I remember hearing the story of a man who said his parents never once raised their voices at each other. He was asked what their secret was. He smiled and said, they saw their marriage as a gift from God, not just a choice they made. They treated each other as signs, not possessions. That perspective changes everything. Because when you see your spouse as a gift from God, gratitude replaces entitlement. Mercy replaces harshness. Patience replaces anger. Isn't that what everyone is looking for in a partner? To be valued, to be seen, to be cherished? The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, lived this teaching in the most beautiful way. He mended his own clothes, helped with household chores, and showed affection openly. When asked who was most beloved to him, he didn't hesitate. He said, Aisha. In a time when men thought affection was weakness, he showed that love is strength. He said, the best of you are those who are best to their families. Notice that. Your worth is not measured by wealth, not by achievements, but by how you treat your spouse at home when no one is watching. That's the true test of character. Marriage in Islam isn't just about the good days. It's about building something that can withstand storms. Love will have moments of silence. Mercy will be tested. Tranquility will sometimes feel far away. But Islam tells us that these challenges are part of the journey, and what holds a marriage together is not fleeting passion, but constant compassion. That is why mercy is mentioned in the verse alongside love. Because passion fades, but mercy keeps you standing. Mercy is when you forgive even when you're hurt. Mercy is when you hold back words that could wound. Mercy is when you choose patience instead of pride. And isn't that exactly what the modern world needs? Families break not because of lack of love, but because of lack of mercy. Couples separate not because of incompatibility, but because patience runs out. Islam's model of marriage is not two perfect people living without problems. It's two imperfect people choosing again and again to show mercy. And that is why it becomes a sign of God, because only by embodying love and mercy do we reflect His attributes on earth. One woman described her marriage by saying, "My husband isn't perfect. But when he prays beside me, when he reminds me of God, when he stands by me in hard times, I feel like our marriage isn't just ours, it's part of something divine." That's the difference between a marriage that is seen as a contract and a marriage that is seen as a sacred bond. The first ends when convenience ends. The second endures because it's anchored in something higher. So, when Islam calls marriage a sign of God, it's not exaggeration. It is showing us that the health of a society depends on the health of its families. And the health of families depends on the love, mercy, and tranquility inside marriages. Without them, society fractures. With them, society heals. Imagine a world where every husband treated his wife with tenderness, where every wife felt cherished, where mercy filled the home. Would we see the same level of brokenness we see today? Would loneliness spread as it does now? Or would the home become what it was always meant to be, a sanctuary of peace? And maybe that is the secret. The solution to modern society's wounds is not in bigger governments, stronger economies, or faster technology. It is in the oldest and simplest unit of all, the family. And at the heart of every family is a marriage that reflects love and mercy as God intended. Because when a husband and wife see each other as a sign of God, the world outside may be chaotic, but inside there will always be peace. Imagine this for a moment. The Quran speaks about the greatest duty of a human being, and after worshipping God alone, what comes next? Not wealth, not success, not even prayer or fasting. It says, be good to your parents. That's how high the rank of parents is in Islam. Right after the Creator comes the ones who carried you, raised you, and sacrificed for you. It's as if God Himself is telling us, you want to show me gratitude? Then start with them. Picture your mother. She carried you for 9 months, every step heavy, every breath harder than the last. She woke up countless nights, not because she wanted to, but because your cries wouldn't let her rest. She fed you, clothed you, taught you, sometimes with tears in her eyes and pain in her body. But she still gave. Your father worked silently, often without recognition. Maybe he didn't say much, maybe he wasn't perfect, but he carried burdens you never saw, just so you could sleep in peace. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, was once asked, who deserves my good company the most? He replied, your mother. The man asked again, then who? The Prophet said, your mother. The man asked once more, then who? The Prophet said, your mother. Only the 4th time did he say, your father. Think about the depth of that answer. 3 times he emphasized the mother before the father. Why? Because her sacrifices are beyond measure. And yet, in our modern world, how often do we see parents neglected? Children growing up and leaving their parents behind, too busy to call, too distracted to visit. In some societies, it's common to place aging parents in homes where strangers care for them while their own children chase careers and dreams. Islam stands in stark contrast to this. It commands that we never even say a word of disrespect to them, not even of the smallest expression of annoyance. It commands us to care for them in old age the way they cared for us in childhood. There's a story of a man who carried his mother on his back during pilgrimage, through the heat and the crowd, feeding her, clothing her, caring for her every need. He went to the Prophet and asked, have I repaid her? The Prophet replied, not even for a single contraction she endured during your birth. Imagine that. A lifetime of service to your mother still cannot equal one moment of her pain while bringing you into the world. That's the honor Islam gives to parents. And this honor isn't just words, it's lived. I remember hearing about a young man in Europe who converted to Islam. When he learned that honoring parents was an act of worship, he began serving his mother, who wasn't even Muslim, with more love and patience than ever before. He cooked for her, cleaned the house, spent time listening to her stories. One day she asked him, why are you so different now? He said, because my faith teaches me that serving you is serving God. She wept because for the first time, she felt the weight of what that meant. Even the elderly, who are often forgotten, are given a sacred place in Islam. The Prophet said, "He is not one of us who does not show mercy to our young and respect to our elders." Respecting your parents isn't just about care. It's about reverence. It's about lowering your voice when they speak, about praying for them long after they're gone. The Quran gives us a beautiful prayer. "My Lord, have mercy on them as they raised me when I was small." That verse becomes the breath of a believer, whispered when standing at their graves, whispered when remembering the hands that once held theirs. Now compare this to what we see in modern society. Depression among the elderly is rising. Loneliness is labeled an epidemic. So many parents live their final years without the comfort of their children's love. Yet Islam had the solution all along. Protect the family by protecting the parents. When children honor their parents, when they stay connected, when they serve and respect them, families stay strong, and strong families mean strong societies. So when Islam places parents right after God, it isn't a coincidence. It's wisdom. It's a reminder that the people who gave you life are the very ones who deserve your gratitude, your love, your service. And perhaps the greatest tragedy is that many realize this only when it's too late. When the phone no longer rings, when the chair at the table is empty, when the chance to say, "Thank you," is gone. But Islam doesn't want us to wait until regret. It calls us to act now, to pick up the phone, to sit with them, to kiss their hands, to pray for them every day. Because serving them is not just love, it's worship. Honoring them is not just duty, it's the path to paradise. Imagine a world where daughters were once buried alive simply because they were girls. That was the reality in parts of Arabia before Islam. Newborn girls were seen as shame, as burdens, as lives unworthy of living. Mothers cried silent tears as their babies were taken from their arms and denied even the right to breathe. It is hard to even imagine such cruelty, but that was the darkness into which Islam arrived, and it shattered it with light. The Quran condemned the practice outright, describing the day of judgment when the girl who was buried alive will be asked for what crime she was killed. In one verse, the horror of that injustice is laid bare for eternity. And then came the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, not just with words but with living examples. He treated children, boys and girls, with tenderness, affection, and dignity in a culture that considered such displays weakness. When his daughter Fatima entered a room, he would rise to his feet, kiss her forehead, and seat her in his place. Imagine that the leader of a growing nation, the man guiding armies and negotiating treaties, standing up for his daughter in front of others to show her honor. How could anyone still claim that daughters were burdens after seeing that? He didn't just change attitudes with his own actions. He changed the standards of society. He taught that having daughters was not misfortune but blessing. Whoever raises two daughters with good upbringing until they reach maturity, he said, he and I will be together in paradise like this. And he joined his fingers together. Can you picture the relief that gave to parents who once hid their daughters in shame? Now, raising a girl with love became a direct pathway to heaven. Islam transformed what was once seen as humiliation into the highest honor. And it wasn't just about girls, it was about children as a whole. The Prophet would shorten his prayers when he heard a baby crying out of compassion for the mother's anxiety. He would carry his grandsons Hassan and Hussein on his shoulders, letting them climb on his back while he prayed, never scolding them for disturbing him. A companion once saw him kiss his grandchild and said, "I have 10 children and I have never kissed any of them." The Prophet looked at him, astonished, and replied, "What can I do if Allah has removed mercy from your heart?" These moments might sound small, but in a culture where men prided themselves on being stoic and distant, this was revolutionary. Affection became a virtue, not a weakness. Think about what this means for modern times. Today, in so many societies, children still suffer neglect. Parents are physically present but emotionally absent, lost in the glow of screens. Work, ambition, and distraction steal the time that children crave. Islam reminds us that every moment with a child is an investment not only in their future, but in your eternity. Playing with them, listening to them, nurturing them, it's not wasted time, it's sacred time. The Prophet said, "A father gives his child nothing better than good manners." Isn't that what every parent wants? To pass on values, to build character, to leave a legacy that outlives them. I once heard the story of a man who converted to Islam and said the way Muslim families treated children was one of the reasons he was drawn in. He said, "I saw fathers holding their children, feeding them, even changing diapers, and it shocked me. Where I came from, men never did that. It was seen as women's work. But here, it was seen as love." He realized that in Islam, being gentle to children was not optional, it was a sign of true strength. And what about the children themselves? When they grow up in a household shaped by Islamic values, they learn respect, empathy, and responsibility. They learn that their parents deserve honor, that their siblings deserve kindness, that their neighbors deserve care. The love they receive becomes the love they give. And when those children go on to build their own families, the cycle continues, strengthening society one household at a time. Isn't it clear that the future of any nation is written in the way it treats its children? Islam doesn't just see children as part of life, it sees them as central to life's purpose. They are described as gifts, as blessings, as trusts from God. And when you realize that, you no longer see their noise as annoyance, their mistakes as frustration, or their needs as burdens. You see them as opportunities to grow yourself, more patient, more merciful, more selfless. You see them as souls entrusted to you for a short while, shaping them before they return to their Creator. This is why Islam's vision of family is so powerful. It starts with how we view the smallest members. By honoring children, Islam builds a foundation of compassion that extends outward into all of society. Because when a child grows up feeling valued, respected, and loved, they don't just become better sons and daughters, they become better human beings. And isn't that exactly what our modern world is missing? When we think about family today, many imagine it as something flexible, something without form, where everyone does what feels right at the moment. But what happens when no one knows their role? When parents are too busy to guide? When children grow up without direction? When spouses compete instead of complement? We see it in broken homes, in children searching for identity, in couples drifting apart. Yet Islam offered a solution centuries ago. It gave family structure, balance, and responsibility, not as chains, but as anchors. Imagine a home as a ship sailing through the unpredictable waves of life. Without a captain, without crew, without clear duties, the ship crashes. But when each person knows their role, when the captain steers and the crew supports, the ship survives storms and reaches its destination. That is what Islam did for families. It made sure no one was left wondering where they stood or what they owed to each other. Let's begin with the bond of marriage. In Islam, the husband is not given authority as a tyrant, but entrusted with responsibility as a guardian. He is commanded to provide, to protect, to show kindness. The Quran says, "Live with them in kindness," and the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, emphasized, "The best of you are those who are best to their wives." That means true strength is not measured by power over, but service to. A husband is not successful when his voice is loudest, but when his heart is gentlest. And the wife, she is not burdened with servitude, but honored with partnership. Islam lifted her from being seen as property to being recognized as a pillar of dignity. She has the right to her wealth, her education, her voice. Her role in the home is not less, it is essential. She is a nurturer, a source of love, the one who shapes the hearts of the next generation. As the saying goes, the hand that rocks the cradle rules the world. Her influence is immeasurable, and Islam honors that influence by granting her respect, not erasing her identity. Then there are the children. They are not accessories or burdens. They are trusts, gifts. The Prophet once said, "Each of you is a shepherd, and each of you will be asked about your flock." Parents are shepherds of their children, and they will be held accountable for how they guided them. That means teaching them values, faith, kindness. Not just handing them devices and hoping they figure life out. It means being present at the dinner table, listening to their fears, celebrating their successes, and correcting their mistakes with love, not neglect. Because the truth is, when children don't find guidance at home, they go searching for it in the wrong places. And what about parents themselves? Islam didn't forget them. As children grow, they are reminded that the cycle turns. Just as parents once cared for their children, children must now honor and serve their parents, not with empty words, but with actions. Sitting with them when they are lonely, supporting them when they are weak, respecting them even when they are difficult. In today's world, where the elderly are often hidden away, Islam calls us to place them at the center, to see them not as a burden, but as a blessing. All of these roles together create balance. No one is left unprotected, unvalued, or forgotten. A husband fulfills his duty, a wife fulfills hers, children grow with love, parents are honored with care. And when this cycle is alive, the family becomes a fortress against the storms of society. Think of a real-life example. I met a young man who had once been lost, caught in the pool of drugs, crime, and broken friendships. When I asked him what saved him, he didn't say it was a program or a punishment. He said, "It was my mother's patience and my father's guidance. They never gave up on me. My home was the one place I knew I was loved." That is responsibility in action. A family refusing to let one of its own drown. This is the kind of responsibility Islam teaches. Not cold rules, but living commitments. Roles that don't restrict, but protect. Duties that don't suppress, but uplift. Because when a man knows his role, he does not neglect his family for his pride. When a woman knows her role, she does not let society strip her of her dignity. When children know their role, they grow into adults who honor where they came from. And when parents know their role, they leave behind not just wealth, but legacy. So when we speak of the family in Islam, we are not speaking of chains, we are speaking of structure. We are not speaking of control, we are speaking of care. We are not speaking of division, we are speaking of unity, each role defined, each responsibility clear, so that no one is lost in the confusion of modern life. And isn't that what the world needs now? Not endless debates over who should do what, but a return to clarity, a return to balance, a return to families built on love, respect, and responsibility, exactly as Islam designed them to be. When we talk about family in Islam, it's easy to stop at parents, spouses, and children. But the vision of family stretches much further. It is not just the house you live in or the last name you carry. It extends outward like ripples in a pond, reaching neighbors, relatives, and society at large. The strength of those connections determines the strength of the whole community. Think about it, a society where people know their neighbors, care for their elderly, and protect their children is a society that thrives. But a society where everyone lives behind closed doors, where no one notices if someone is hungry or lonely, is a society that collapses under its own emptiness. Islam saw this truth long before modern experts labeled loneliness an epidemic. There's a famous saying of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. He is not a believer whose stomach is filled while his neighbor goes hungry. Notice how radical this statement is. It doesn't ask whether the neighbor is Muslim or not. It doesn't ask whether you like them or whether they agree with you. It simply says, if you eat while someone next door starves, something in your faith is incomplete. Can you imagine if every street lived by that principle? If every person took responsibility for the ones living closest to them? Hunger would disappear overnight. Isolation would be cured. The world would feel smaller, kinder, safer. I once heard a story of a woman in a western city who embraced Islam. She said the moment that touched her most was not in a lecture or a book, but when, as a new convert, her Muslim neighbors began bringing her food, checking on her, inviting her to gatherings. She said, "I had lived in this neighborhood for 10 years, and no one ever knocked on my door. But when I became Muslim, my home felt alive with people who cared." That is what community support looks like when family values spill beyond bloodlines. Even in the early days of Islam, the Prophet built a community in Medina, not just on prayer and worship, but on family, like bonds between people who weren't related by blood at all. He paired immigrants from Mecca with locals from Medina as brothers in faith. One man would share his home, his wealth, his meals with another simply because they were now family in Islam. Imagine arriving in a new city with nothing, no home, no relatives, no support, and being welcomed by someone who says, "My family is your family now." That kind of love and generosity doesn't just build strong individuals, it builds unshakable societies. Now contrast that with what we see today in many modern societies. Elderly parents are placed in nursing homes because families feel too busy to care for them. Children grow up with both parents working long hours, spending more time with their phones or tablets than with their mothers or fathers. Neighbors can live side by side for years and never even know each other's names. Loneliness, anxiety, and disconnection skyrocket. Governments spend billions on social programs to patch the cracks. But the core problem is not lack of money, it's lack of family values. It's the absence of that deep sense of responsibility for one another. Islam's family model, with its emphasis on extending mercy and care beyond the household, is the answer the modern world is desperate for. Another story comes to mind. During Ramadan, in many Muslim majority countries, you'll find long tables stretching down the streets where anyone can come and eat, rich or poor, Muslim or non-Muslim, young or old. No one asks for your background. No one checks your bank account. You sit down, you break bread, and for that moment, you belong. That's not just charity. It's family in action, community in its purest form. And it's no surprise that people who experience this kind of hospitality often describe it as life-changing, even faith-changing. But the beauty of Islam's family model is that it doesn't wait for big events like Ramadan. It insists on daily kindness. The Prophet said, "Smiling in the face of your brother is charity." Think about that. Something as small as a smile, a gesture of warmth, is treated as an act of worship. Why? Because those small acts stitch communities together. They make people feel seen. And when people feel seen, they feel safe. And when they feel safe, society flourishes. So when we say the family is central to Islam, it's not just about the private home. It's about the way those family values radiate outward. A child raised with respect for parents will grow into an adult who respects elders in society. A parent who models generosity in the home will raise children who feed their neighbors. A spouse who practices patience in marriage will bring patience into the workplace, into friendships, into leadership. The private values of family are the seeds that grow into the public values of civilization. The West calls it a loneliness epidemic. Islam calls it a failure to live as family. And the solution is not complicated. It's already written in the very fabric of the faith. Care for one another, feed one another, visit the sick, honor the elders, protect the young, make your neighbors feel like kin. When you do that, you don't just build stronger families, you build stronger societies. Because in the end, community is only as strong as the family values it carries. And Islam reminds us that those values are not optional extras. They are the very foundation of faith itself. In a world where everyone seems to be rushing, where careers swallow hours and technology steals attention, where parents sit with their children but scroll through screens instead of listening to their voices, balance has become almost a forgotten word. Yet Islam has been teaching it for centuries. Balance between family and work. Balance between rights and responsibilities. Balance between giving love to those closest to you and extending kindness to the wider society. It is a balance so profound that if we return to it, much of what we call the crisis of modern life would begin to heal. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, was the perfect example of this balance. He led armies, he guided a nation, he delivered revelation, and yet, when he was at home, he mended his own clothes, milked his own goat, and helped his family with chores. Imagine the leader of a state, a man whose responsibilities stretch beyond what most of us could comprehend, taking time to sit with his grandchildren, to carry them on his shoulders, to listen to their laughter. He didn't just talk about family values, he lived them. He reminded us that true greatness is not only in public achievements, but in private kindness. This is a lesson modern society desperately needs. Today, success is often measured in titles, salaries, and how busy we appear. But how many successful professionals have children who barely know them, spouses who feel invisible, parents who long for a visit that never comes? How many of us chase the world while forgetting those sitting right across from us? Islam doesn't deny ambition, it channels it. It teaches that fulfilling your responsibilities to your family is part of your worship. Serving your spouse, caring for your parents, nurturing your children, these acts are seen as sacred. Isn't that a definition of success that feels more human, more complete? Think about how different the world would look if everyone lived with that balance. A father wouldn't just bring money home, he'd bring presents, time, and affection. A mother wouldn't just be respected for what she provides, but cherished for who she is. Children wouldn't just be disciplined, they'd be loved, guided, and heard. Parents wouldn't just be tolerated in their old age, they'd be honored, cared for, and made to feel valued. The balance Islam teaches isn't about dividing time equally. It's about giving the right of each person their due with love and fairness. I remember a story of a man who once asked the Prophet, peace be upon him, "Who deserves my best companionship?" And the Prophet replied, "Your mother." The man asked again, and again the reply was, "Your mother." A third time, "Your mother." Only on the fourth time did he say, "Your father." This repetition wasn't by accident. It was a deliberate reminder of the balance owed within the family. A balance that prioritizes compassion and sacrifice, recognizing those who gave the most. In modern terms, it's as if Islam is telling us, don't wait until it's too late to honor the people who held you when you were weakest. And the balance doesn't stop there. Islam teaches that being good to your family does not mean shutting yourself off from the world. The ripple begins at home and extends outward. The kindness shown to a spouse reflects in the kindness shown to neighbors. The respect for parents builds respect for elders in society. The love for children shapes love for the next generation of humanity. It starts in the home, but flows into the streets, the workplaces, the communities. That's why when families thrive, societies become stronger, more compassionate, and more stable. Now picture the opposite, a world without this balance. Families fractured, parents neglected, children feeling unloved, neighbors disconnected. Isn't that the world we already see forming around us? Loneliness rising, depression increasing, communities breaking apart. The irony is that people search for solutions in conferences, books, and policies when the answer has been in front of us all along. The balance of family in Islam is not just a moral teaching, it is a survival strategy for humanity. And here's the most beautiful part. This balance is not beyond anyone's reach. It doesn't require wealth or status. It doesn't demand perfection. It simply asks us to begin where we are, with the people already in our lives. To put down the phone when a child is speaking. To call a parent before it's too late. To share a meal with family without distraction. To make time for those who will one day remember not what we earned, but how we made them feel. These simple shifts practiced consistently bring back the balance Islam teaches so clearly. In truth, the solution to modern society's emptiness doesn't lie in creating something new. It lies in reviving something eternal. The balance of family is not just an idea, it is the heart of Islam's vision for a healthy world. And if we dare to live it, if we dare to place family back where it belongs, at the center of our lives, we won't just heal our homes, we will heal the world. So here we are, at a crossroads. A world rushing forward, yet somehow emptier than ever. A society filled with noise, yet starving for connection. And the answer we've been searching for, the cure to loneliness, the antidote to brokenness, the remedy to chaos, has been in front of us all along. It's family. Not just any family. Not the family we neglect, not the family we put last, not the family we take for granted. But the family Islam teaches us to honor, to love, to serve, to protect. Because when families are strong, societies are strong. When families are whole, nations are whole. When families are built on balance, mercy, and respect, humanity heals. So I ask you, don't wait. Don't wait to call your mother. Don't wait to hug your child. Don't wait to honor your father. Don't wait to forgive your spouse. Don't wait to put family first. Because the world changes not through grand speeches, not through endless policies, not through empty promises. The world changes when a child feels loved, when a parent feels valued, when a family feels whole. Say it with me. Family is not a burden, it's a blessing. Family is not weakness, it's strength. Family is not old-fashioned, it's the future. And never forget this final line: if you want to change the world, start at your dinner table. That is where revolutions are born,